Kathleen Bostrom, who goes by Kathy, is an award-winning author of over 50 books for children and an ordained pastor, although she now writes full-time. Her new book, Since the Baby Came, a siblings learning to love story in 16 poems, uses various poetry styles to explore the complex feelings that older siblings might feel when a baby brother or sister comes along. So welcome to the Bookmark, Kathy.
Pleasure to be here.
So it was really fun to read these, and it actually helped me as a mom understand a little bit more of what my son might have been feeling when his sister arrived. And you are a mother of 3, as well as you are the middle child among your siblings.
Yes.
So what do you remember from that time, either as a kid or as a mom of 3 young ones?
I think 3 is an interesting number because there's often 2 that connect at any one time and 1 that might feel left out. So having that challenge, I grew up with that. I was a very quiet child, and I was in some ways more of a firstborn as far as wanting to be the good kid and do everything right and follow directions and things like that. So the birth order, they always give you, this is what the firstborn is, this is the secondborn, this is the third. In my own family growing up, and also with my children, learned that sometimes it is true and sometimes not. And part of my challenge as a parent and as a sibling, I guess, was learning who the other people are, learning the personalities, learning what makes them tick, learning how they interact with each other and other people and adults. And so I think it's really kind of a fun challenge to have, is just getting to know your child for who they are without the stereotypes or any kind of things you're expecting to have.
Well, I feel like as a parent, a book like this is a useful tool because what you really try to do is not neglect the older child too, right? When there's this new baby coming. So this book is like a book for them that addresses these emotions, these feelings. And I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the content, but really just in terms of the poetry, you are experienced in the art of poetry yourself. And this book gives kids a real introduction to this style of writing. What did you discover about writing? Anything new that you learned or discovered while you were in this process of the book?
It was a challenge to write in different poetic formats, but I really loved the challenge. It came to me 10 years ago, and the core curriculum was a big thing, and a friend of mine who worked in educational publishing. So I asked her one day at a book conference, where are the gaps in the curriculum for young children? And she said, in poetry. And I love writing in poetry. I really worked hard to perfect it, but I'd never written a book where each poem was so different. So I had children's books that helped me learn about the different formats of poetry, and I just had fun playing with the different poems. And the goal when I was writing the book, and still is, to introduce children, not only to tell a good story, which I think is authentic, exploring emotions that a child could have, and affirming that all these emotions you might have, even feeling left out or not so happy about things, those are all okay. So that my basic premise was to tell the story and reassure a child that all your emotions are okay, they're normal, you don't have to hide them. But also to introduce the fun of poetry. It seemed like even if children or even the adults don't look at the back and see that each one is a different format and here's how it plays out, just that they're different, I think. So for a very young child, might not be ready to learn, well, this is a villanelle or this is a rondo or whatever, can just enjoy, like, poetry is fun and it's not always the same. So that were my 2 goals when I wrote the book, and took years to perfect it. But I really look forward. I had just retired from being an active pastor with my husband in a church, and was finding my way into a different world of being a full-time writer. But I could not wait to get up every morning and work on this book.
I love that.
I just had fun with it. So I hope other people have fun with it too.
You blended the two masterfully. Like it really is a great book to read. And like you said, you explain the different types of poetry. So I learned something as a parent in the back of the book. I also like that. Well, first of all, going back to what you said about their emotions are okay. I love that you're demonstrating in these poems that when they're experiencing different emotions, they can talk to God.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that poem about where the child is praying to God, and I don't know what to think, and this is so hard, and then throughout the poem of prayer comes to this settling feeling of, well, but I can do this, and I can sing the lullaby, and so I feel like in that conversation with God, the child found some resolution, some comforting listening presence. I know kids sometimes are afraid to tell their parents too how they're feeling, but we can always turn to God in prayer. And that child in that prayer found it wasn't just praying about, I'm upset or I feel lost or what do I do? And the baby cries. It was like a progression into feeling like God is listening. I'm okay with this, and I hope that is a comforting prayer for parents to use with their children or just the child reading the book.
Yeah. It really is a different approach to, I'm getting a baby sister or a baby brother. And as kind of a last question, I want to pick out one particular poem, if I may. And
Sure.
if you're like, no, I don't want to talk about that one, I have a different one I want to talk about, then you tell me. But I really like the Jesus Was a Baby Too poem.
Oh, yes.
What type of poem is this? Let's break that one apart. And why was this an important subject?
Well, so when I originally wrote the book, I didn't have the faith part of it. I wrote it originally as a secular book, so it could be used in schools. And when Sarah Rubio, God bless Sarah Rubio at Waterbrook, expressed some interest in the manuscript and was making its way, she asked if I could add to the book that component, which I was glad to do because most of my books are written from my Christian faith. And so that's what is usual for me. Writing a secular book was a different thing. So I was really happy to be able to do that. But with the poems being so tightly formatted, I couldn't just add words in poems to make them. I had to think through now what's missing in this book. So that one, Jesus Was a Baby Too, Just Like Me and Just Like You, I thought that was a perfect poem to show a child understanding the incarnation of Christ in this little baby that's living among, come to the family, to understand the Christmas story in a really deeper and wonderful way. Like Jesus had fingers and toes. I'll try to speak quickly here. When our daughter was a little, she found one day at our church, we were serving together, the doll we used for the baby Jesus and the nativity. And she came racing down the hall to my office. Oh my gosh, Jesus has a belly button just like me. So I think that was probably prompting that, like, oh my gosh, that was so incredible to her that Jesus had a belly button. Like she did. So I think probably that was part of it too. Just like me and just like you, and that God loves us as children as God loves all of us as his beloved. So, and that kind of a poem, I'm looking it up because I'm working on another, it's a refrain, what I call a refrain. So there was a refrain that just kept showing up with each of the stanzas. And then at the end, I added that repetitive line to kind of end it.
Yeah.
So, almost like a song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So much variety. Again, it's really filling a niche, a need for a book for kids, again, that are becoming big brothers or big sisters. So thank you again, Kathy. Kathleen Long Bostrom. Again, the book is called Since the Baby Came, a siblings learning to love story in 16 poems. Thank you.
Thank you so much.